Today we're going to tell you what it's really like to live in Sarasota, Florida.
We're going to react and review to bestplaces.net.
They're going to have basically data and some reviews, and we're going to give you the good, the bad, the ugly, and tell you our thoughts based on all that. So let's type it in. First time seeing this, Sarasota, Florida.
Wow.
Wow, 2 stars out of 105 reviews. So I'm going to say off the bat, no.
That's pretty bad. Yeah.
Sarasota is one of my favorite cities in all of Florida.
Yeah.
I'm kind of, okay, so keep in mind, right off the bat, we'll go to the first population is the first stat, and 53,786. It's up 4.2% since 2020. That right there tells you a lot, because if you include all of Sarasota, what's actually Sarasota, it's probably closer to like 150,000. Yeah. So keep that in mind that, you know, this is probably reviewing one little pocket. That being said, it seems like we did a previous video on Venice where we did the reviews, and people might live in Venice Gardens or South Venice, just like with Sarasota. They might live in different pockets of Sarasota, and they're still going to leave the review under Sarasota. So it is probably kind of aggregated or brought together into this Sarasota review.
The median income in Sarasota is $41,670.
I want to say that's lower than Venice's. I think Venice's was
46.
I think it was like 45, 46. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Median age is 47.2.
That's
significantly younger than Venice. Yeah. I'm not surprised that it's younger, but it's just more than I thought it would be. I think Venice was like 60.
60, yeah.
So if you don't know Venice, obviously our channel is Life in Venice, Florida. That's where we live. It's about 30 minutes south of Sarasota. And generally, yeah, the population does steer a little bit older.
The unemployment rate in Sarasota is 4.6%. The national average is 3.7% as of the time we're filming this video,
which is June 2023. Median home price is $454,200. Again, that
doesn't seem accurate. Yeah.
Venice's, I think, was
$424.
Is that what it was? I thought it was higher than that. So Sarasota generally is viewed as costing more, and I would say that's accurate. It does cost more.
The comfort index climate is 2.5 in summer and 9.2 in winter, so pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, I think those are almost the same exact numbers, which, yeah, makes sense. The weather's pretty much the same.
Same coast.
So let's get into the good stuff, the reviews, which I'm really interested to see. Like, I don't know.
How does Sarasota get 2 stars?
To me, I would have thought it would have been on par with Venice, which was 4 stars out of 5, or maybe
like a 3.5. You know, a little lower because it is a bigger city.
I also could have seen it being 4.5. I guess that wouldn't have surprised me either, like being a little higher, but I just thought it would have been close.
Yeah. Oh, and this is recent. March 24, 2023. Becoming your basic overcrowded tourist trap. Somewhat. And I think it's mainly because of Siesta Key.
Right. That's the only thing in Sarasota that to me screams tourism.
Yeah. Maybe St. Armand Circle too.
A little bit.
But not much.
Yeah, I don't know. And so, like some of the stuff that's in like Siesta Key Village, I could see.
Yeah.
But Sarasota as a whole just doesn't seem like a tourism type city to me.
And keep in mind, this is someone who was born in Sarasota, so they're seeing all the changes, you know, from even before, you know, the 2019 pandemic when everyone started moving here to now. So of course it's going to be
negative.
Yeah, not that his experience, like, we're not trying to say that it's a lie or anything,
or it's not valid
or it's not valid, but it is like through a perspective of someone who was born here. So this is their hometown. So Sarasota is my home from birth, but those of us who have lived here long enough to have seen the devolution of what was once as an easy to navigate, clean, low crime beach town are devastated by almost instantaneous change since the pandemic to what is becoming a rundown tourist trap.
I can see definitely the change, for sure.
Yes.
I feel like it's still pretty clean, but I could definitely see how it's not as clean as it used to be, for sure. Easy to navigate. Well,
with more people, more traffic.
That can make it more difficult, but the actual navigation and roads are pretty much the same as they were before the pandemic. So, but the rundown, I disagree with. Maybe it's not as nice as it was a few years ago, possibly. And tourist trap again, I don't see that personally. But
unless we're talking about Siesta Key Beach, then yes, kind of. easy not to see the negatives while on vacation or living the transient lifestyle of a remote worker who can just insert yourself into any town you want at will. Some of many move here and yet they don't even bother registering their cars.
Well, that's not exclusive to Sarasota.
Yeah,
a lot of people did it. Like when we first moved to Orlando, we knew a lot of people that didn't, and then they said, yeah, I got friends that haven't done it. They've been living here like 7 years or something like that. I'm like, oh, okay.
School car lines are full of out-of-state plates of parents who have enrolled their kids in our schools yet have no intention of calling Sarasota home. That's reserved for whatever state they can't stand enough. They leave it most of the year. It's disheartening to see the decline of a once nice town. I understand the license plates, but I don't think most people would be pulling their kids mid-year and taking them back to a different school district, a different state. I might be wrong, but I don't see that being the case.
Yeah, and I also think, okay, so number one, I think both people have valid issues here, I guess. So Jane, the reviewer, I understand her gripe with it because she grew up here and to see the change. That being said, also I can see the parents that are moving here's perspective. Like when we made the move from Florida, like there's a lot of different things that you've got to like register and get done, like especially if you got kids, adding that on. So yeah, there's going to be some parents that probably just, that's not the first thing on their list, or it's going to take maybe a few months. I don't think that's necessarily indicative that they're going to move back to another state, though.
Or maybe they're giving it a try and they don't want to go like jump through all the hoops of becoming a resident, and you know, if they have to move back, then they don't have to go through the whole process again
That's true.
at their hometown.
In which case Jane would be correct then.
Yeah.
You know, so I guess, you know, again, I can see both sides of it, but I don't think the city is a 2-star city. I think the 2-star review from Jane is saying like, this is not what I grew up in.
Yeah.
And we mentioned this, we did a recent video, we'll link it in the description. We moved from Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, a small town. And so now we hear sometimes similar things like this review about Venice, also just Florida in general. Like we hate how it's changing. And we went back to our city of Fond du Lac and we're like, that city's also changed a lot, but we feel like
we welcome the change.
Yeah, and in Fond du Lac, it was seemed like a little worse, and now it seems like it's getting a little better, but it just shows like it doesn't matter where you're coming from, your city is going to change over the course of 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
And I'd rather, I guess, it be positive, and what you consider to be positive, I guess, just depends on what you like. This is a little bit higher review, 4 stars.
Compare 2022?
Yeah, from late 2022. Would that be August? September 2022. Oh, Sarasota, nice. Our new home with San Clemente, California. So this should be a pretty interesting juxtaposition. Starting to love Sarasota. Wife and I moved to Osprey. Oh, okay. So Osprey is kind of Sarasota. It's like towards the southern end of it, kind of in between Venice and Sarasota, but closer to Sarasota. A small suburb between Sarasota and Venice. I should have just let them do the chugging. We're about 13 miles to downtown Sarasota, so not city dwellers. But as we had moved here just 3 years ago, right before COVID, from San Clemente, California, hopefully I'm saying that right, I thought that a comparison would be very helpful to many. I agree. Both towns are of a similar size, 57,000 for Sarasota, 67 for San Clemente. Sarasota is less than an hour to Tampa, St. Pete. San Clemente, an hour and change to most of LA or San Diego. Cost of living. Folks think that Sarasota is expensive, have no idea. True. See, again, this is where perspective and your origin comes into play. True, seems like a lot of Northeast money is buying multi-million-dollar condos overlooking the bay, but home prices, even after 50% plus increase in the last 3 years, including the recent slight drops, are still bargains compared to San Clemente. Now, again, I think something to consider is that's California you're talking about, maybe Chicago and New York and maybe a couple other cities in the Northeast coast. Outside of that, for everyone else in America, they're going to say maybe that it's too expensive. I guess it just depends.
Yes.
But again, it's perspective. It depends on where you're coming from. So for this person, yeah, it's a deal. For you, maybe it isn't. I don't know. You can decide that, but I think it's all relative, and you have to keep that in perspective and what you're getting for, out of the area as far as beaches, shopping, amenities. And it's not just a house here is comparable to a house here. Based on the house alone, you also have to consider the city, the weather, all that goes with it. Taxes, well, nothing needs to be said here. there. Well, because there's no state income tax. There are, property taxes that have went up a lot recently. I think those are things to consider.
Well, California is a lot more.
Yeah.
So not only property taxes, but also sales tax.
Yeah, true. So yeah, there's I guess, again, it's better here than there, but it depends on where you're coming from.
It might be higher. For us, it was actually higher.
Yeah. So
But there is no income, and in Wisconsin, we did have the income tax.
yeah, small town Wisconsin, lower sales tax, lower property tax. So they also said we had to make a typical California resident's choice for all but the top 5% as we reach retirement age. Work until you die in California or retire to a low tax state to enjoy a respectable life. No brainer, especially since our daughter is also not in California but working in New York City. So we picked Florida instead of Arizona, New Mexico, LV, I think is Las Vegas, which is, all the other ones were states, so that threw me off, or Texas. Nashville in hindsight sounds tempting, but no ocean/Gulf. About our only friends not fleeing California are those whose kids are still there. Some of those will stay close, but eventually go to, say, Las Vegas, less than a 4-hour drive. San Clemente has some of the least expensive real estate on the entire South California coast, because it is equidistant from the two cities further than any other. Note that Sarasota has a real art, culture, and hopefully a growing music scene, if small, versus San Clemente, which relies on neighboring cities. So that's, I think, something worth noting. Sarasota is known for their arts, theater, things like that. Music scene, not so much, but you're not too far from Tampa. Both towns have great food. Even down here in Osprey, we find the selection of restaurants to be excellent. And Sarasota, I think, has, per I think it's the population or the square miles of the metropolitan, the most high-rated. I don't ever pay attention to these fancy restaurants, but the most amount of those types of restaurants, I think, of anywhere in Florida, or it might even be the United States.
Even more than Orlando.
Oh, way more. Yeah. So anyway, even down here in restaurant or Osprey, we can find selection of restaurants to be excellent. I'm not a real high-end foodie, but can be impressed with a great lobster, tail, steak, or fish. But our friends pushing my experience, we love Tsunamis in particular. Never heard of that one. And Waterfront 2 in our backyard is a great find. Might have to check those out. Traffic up and down the 41 is a B word. Swear word, as is trying to get it to Siesta Key in season. Agree. Trying to get to the next town up in California, Laguna Beach, as bad or worse. Agree. I've been in the traffic in Los Angeles area, and it can get bad in Sarasota, Tampa at times, but Cali puts it to shame. But we don't all need Siesta Key's court white beaches. We're great with Nokomis Beach, which runs for miles and is plenty wide. Great for 2-mile walks every week. We loved San Clemente. We really like Osprey, Sarasota, Venice. So far, it's getting better as we make new friends. Sure, summers are tough. Okay, we're just gonna skip because this is a really long review. Here's a good thing to point out. A salary of $120,000 Sarasota, Florida should increase to $251,000 in San Clemente, California. Assumptions include homeowner, no child care, and taxes are not considered. Taxes are not even considered. So yeah, really long, really in-depth review, but I think that's an interesting comparison.
Yeah, definitely, and especially because we do have a lot of people moving from Cali to Florida, so making that comparison between the two cities, I think it was great. Next one is from February 2022. Great place to visit, but didn't like living here. This is interesting.
2 stars.
2 stars, yeah. As always, anyone considering moving to any place new, including Sarasota, needs to calm down and spend a month or two before actually moving here. Yes.
We say that so much on the channel.
And if you can't do a month or two, at least a couple weeks,
yeah,
just checking out the area. City is overrun with wealthy, snobbish retirees. The cost of living is very high, and the heat and heavy humidity linger year-round. I wouldn't agree with the heat. I mean, you do know what you're signing up for when you're moving to Florida, but it's not year-round.
And what we always say is don't visit a week or two, but also make sure one of those weeks is in the summer.
Yeah.
So you actually know, and you spend it's one thing to be here for 2-3 days in the summer, oh, that wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
Do a week so you're in it. Wealthy, snobbish retirees. I haven't got that feeling.
Yeah, me neither. I've heard of people saying Naples is very snobbish, and when you go to Naples, you can. I don't know. I love Naples.
She likes it more than I do. I don't dislike Naples, but I
but
prefer.
It is more ritzy.
Yeah, and I prefer Sarasota.
Yeah, and when you have more ritzy, you could find people like that. But Sarasota, I feel it's. I mean, again, it is her experience, but
it feels slightly more maybe slightly affluent and slightly, more artsy cultured
Yeah.
a little bit, but I don't know.
It is like living in a sweaty armpit for most of the year.
This is great. We need to do more of these because just some of people's descriptions are...
The beaches are beautiful, but access to them is horrible because you can never find a parking spot. That can be a problem in Siesta Key.
Yeah, and it's a
We
huge
always
parking
find
lot.
Parking, I feel like. Well, one time we couldn't find parking.
And there's been a couple times during season where you kind of have to wait for someone to pull out. But people are like, if they're walking to their car and they see you driving, they'll be like, hey, I'm going to leave, and they'll let you know.
Yeah.
So, but
yes, it's a huge parking. It's free parking and it's always packed for the most part.
in the winter.
Yeah. Insects, rodents, and reptiles are your year-round roommates. Not really?
No.
But okay.
Yeah, there's little lizards outside everywhere.
Yeah.
Ants. There are palmetto bugs or roaches or whatever you want to call them, but
They're not your roommates. Like, yeah, they're outside, but if you take care of your property, they're not gonna come inside.
yeah. I've heard very mixed things on that. I've heard some people say that they still have issues with it, but I think it depends on again, yeah, are you taking care of, are you doing pest control outside? You got to be proactive.
Unless you can afford to live in an uber wealthy neighborhood or send the kids to a private school, the school aren't all that great.
Let's just say this. There's plenty of online websites that review schools, and they generally will say Sarasota has some of the best schools in all of Florida. So, and that's not the private schools, that's the public schools. So take that for what it's worth. That's not our personal opinion. That's websites that are reviewing the schools based on, certain criteria.
Yeah, I think going on those websites and maybe even calling the school districts, if you have children and are worried about their education, I would say call the school districts, go on those websites. You'll find a lot of information on there. Traffic and crowds everywhere. As I said, try it out first before moving down here. Traffic, yes. Crowds, I think it's worse during the winter months.
Exactly, that's what I was gonna say. And it depends on where you are too.
Yeah. And the time of day. I mean, I agree with her, trying out before moving down. Again, if you can't do a month or more, just do a couple weeks and you'll get a feel for it right away, pretty much.
And apparently she's now in Marianna, Florida. I don't know where that is. So she must have, so it must be a smaller town. So she probably wants something smaller. But again, that comes back to, like she said, though, spend a few weeks there before you decide to move there. Okay, let's do a 3-star review, so slightly above the average. Living in Sarasota is the title. I've lived in Sarasota for 8 years. The snowbird population is continually rising, which is contributing to horrible traffic, unaffordable housing, and overcrowded beaches and restaurants. Again, I think a lot of this comes back to the fact that it is changing, it is growing, and a lot of the gripes people have are due to this. And that's just the nature of it. When a place is awesome, word gets out, especially in nowadays age, with the internet and just, COVID kind of put a light under people's fire under people's hinder to okay, I need to get somewhere better than where I am now, or just a lot of people just wanted to change. And I think a lot of that.
And a lot of people are also working from home now, so it's easier to make that move. While, before the pandemic, everyone had to actually go to work in offices or, so they weren't able to move. Now they can just pick up and move.
Right. So again, and a lot of people that are leaving these reviews, so this was from 2020 actually, it's based on what they were used to and now it's this. And so they liked this and now it's this, right? But if you come check it out right now, this is the norm for you. You know what I mean? So it could change. But again, spend some time there. Check it out. See what you think of it. It's winter and summer, so you can see the winter busyness and congestedness. That's a word. And the, heat and humidity of the summer. So anyways, horrible traffic. I wouldn't say it's horrible, but it's because I've been in much worse. But yeah, if you're from a small town, it could seem bad. Unaffordable housing. It is getting a little more pricey based on the incomes for typical jobs in that area. Yeah, I could say somewhat unaffordable. So maybe if you have your own business, work from home, something like that, probably going to be a better option for you. Overcrowded beaches and restaurants. Again, the winter months. The winter months weather is awesome, but due to red tide pollution, the beaches are not recommended unless you risk the chance of becoming ill. They didn't really point this out, but it's not like red tide's always there. Does seem like it's been happening a little more frequently, but I think one was because of a big pollution dump that happened in Tampa about
2 years,
2.5, 3 years ago maybe, and then Hurricane Ian. But some people think it's just because there's lots of pollution all the time now, or that the global warming or whatever you want to call it is getting warmer. There's a lot of different reasons people give for it. And anyways, we're not here to talk politics and get into all that. I don't know. It does seem like it's been happening a little more frequently lately, but I think a lot of it is just because of some of the things that have happened recently, not necessarily that it's going to happen every year. The quaint atmosphere of Sarasota is quickly fading due to rapid growth. Public housing expansion and homelessness are always on the political menu, which is encouraging more crime. I don't know. There's definitely some homeless population in Sarasota. We're not going to say that there isn't. Again, I feel like it's overall a pretty nice city given the size still and the amount of people that are there. The median house price has been stated to be around $240,000. I strongly disagree. Yeah, I do on that too, actually. $240,000. Oh, this is from 2020. Okay, so put that in context. And actually, we just did that, and it was like 411. Yeah, so it was probably a little behind when they left this review. But after house shopping off and on for numerous years, the average price for a house in a low to medium neighborhood was to $350,000 and above. The house we are renting was 50 years old, less than 1,500 square feet, and was over $400,000 when the owner bought it. We have chosen to buy out of Sarasota, but I can see where people who can afford to live in the concrete high-rise downtown in $2 to $10 million homes would enjoy the Gulf View ambience. Man, I'm just surprised that there's less positive reviews of Sarasota. Yeah. I just feel like there's a lot to love about it. There's a lot of great restaurants. Obviously, the world-class beaches, which, again, word got out, so now a lot of people go. That's just kind of the nature of things.
But Sarasota, I feel like Siesta Key Beach has been known for a while now.
Yeah.
Like, it has been well known. Maybe Sarasota as a city wasn't, but Siesta Key Beach, definitely. Like, most people know about it. And I think also most of the people that are leaving the reviews are people that have been in the area for a little while.
And they're a little salty.
Yeah, and this is also a way of keeping new people from coming, because like if you give people all the negatives, it's like, oh, okay, that place sucks, I'm not moving there.
Yeah, true.
So I think there is like, just take everything with a grain of salt, I guess.
And we know this is a thing because we used to post a lot on TikTok, and we actually stopped because if we were promoting any city and like some of the things we liked about it, like you would get people pouncing on it and they would just point out all the negatives, and we literally saw people say, yeah, we're leaving these negative comments to keep people out. Like literally said that. Yeah. And I get it because you don't want to see a place change. However, like we've mentioned before, like any city's going to change. It can either change and get, die out, less businesses, less people moving there, or it can grow. And that brings different challenges. And that's just kind of the nature of any city. I mean, any city, you give it 20 years, it will not be the place you remembered. Right. So I understand
the sentiment behind it.
Yeah, but at the same time, I just don't feel like it's realistic to expect anywhere to stay the same.
Right. I think if anything, people just need to be a little more open to welcoming change. And if you don't like something, maybe like try to figure out how to change it.
Well, they're trying to do it through reviews.
Yeah, keep people out. But yes, I would be interested to know what this person thinks right now, because I mean, this was 2020. Home prices were still low, or on the lower end. Now the median it's $420. And
yeah.
She said $240.
Well, it was the end of 2020, so it was at that time is like when people,
started going up.
Was the start / 1/3 of the way into the crazy appreciation and changes with people coming in.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Sarasota's first. We don't live in Sarasota. We live in Venice. We love Venice, but Sarasota is still one of my favorite cities in all of Florida, hands down.
And we actually considered moving to Sarasota, but it's just we weren't like very familiar with the area for what we were looking for, and we were just like, well, Sarasota is only 30-minute drive, so like
best of both worlds.
Yeah, let's live in Venice and drive to Sarasota whenever, which we do all the time. Whenever we want to do like bigger city things, that's what we end up doing.
Yeah, I've heard some people say that what Venice is now, or maybe even like a year ago, is kind of what Sarasota was like 10, 15 years ago, which I can kind of see, but at the same time not, because Sarasota always did have higher mid-rise buildings anyway, that Venice just doesn't really have much of, but I don't know. I like Sarasota.
I like Sarasota too.
I love Sarasota actually, but
if you are looking to move to the area, make sure to call, text, or email us 941-221-1897. I am a local realtor here.
Whether you're looking to move in the next couple days, next couple months, we'll always have your back. Call or text at any time. If you want to know a little bit more about what it's actually like to live in Sarasota, not just from people that maybe have a little salty about the changes, check out this video right here. If you found the video helpful or interesting, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on all notifications, and live breezy.